Good evening, everybody, and welcome to, and I should say actually, it's good morning, really, to our two special guests tonight, because it is Tammy Beaumont and Heather Knight, England's women's stars, world beaters, and also, I notice, Big Bash winners as well. They've joined us live from New Zealand in the very early morning. So, girls, thank you very much for getting up and joining us. It's great to have you on. Round of applause. You won't get many rounds of applause in your forthcoming series in New Zealand, except from your teammates. So, you know, we'll make sure there's lots of applause tonight, okay? And how are you both feeling?
Yeah, good. We've arrived in Christchurch to commence our 2 weeks quarantine, which has gone quite well so far. We've been allowed out into an exercise yard for our daily exercise, which has been quite nice.
You're not horses, are you? It sounds like you describe yourself as horses, an exercise yard.
No one walks us around, unfortunately. That wouldn't have comply with social distancing regulations. But now I've been really well looked after. Obviously amazing to be here, and yeah, just got to get through these 2 weeks and then we're off the leash in New Zealand.
How long have you been there for? How long have you actually been there for? How much quarantine have you got left? You've only been there for a couple of days, haven't you? If that.
Is it day 2, Tam?
Day 3.
Day 3. I've lost track already. That's a bit worrying, isn't it? So yeah, long way to
Tammy,
go.
show us what you've been doing. Show us your how you've been spending your quarantine.
My numbers. So this is a picture of my dog and my partner. I'm going to paint it all, and hopefully it'll look good.
Show us it again. Come on, that's too quick. It looks good. It does look good. Say painting my numbers. So, yeah. What kind of, is that a little baby Labrador, puppy Labrador?
Yeah, he's only 16 weeks today. So, yeah, missing him already. But, yeah, he's cute.
And you say you've got 2 weeks to kill, basically, have you?
Yeah, but it's slightly different. So Heather and I did it for the Big Bash in Australia, and it was literally 2 weeks in a hotel room, no yard time, nothing, and pretty horrendous food, to be honest. But here, on day 8, as long as there's no issues, no breaches of the rules, we can go out and train in bubbles of 7. So we're all kind of really looking forward to that and on our best behaviour for the next sort of 5 days.
Well, Heather, what's the secret to surviving these bio bubbles? I mean, how do you do it? How do you manage to cope when you're stuck in isolation like that for a long time?
I've tried to not think about it too much, to be honest. I think just trying to take it day by day. We've obviously experienced different things. We had a bio bubble at Derby in the summer. Me and Tam were obviously out in the Big Bash in a slightly different bubble, which had a bit more freedom. And then with quarantine, we've had it in Australia where you're stuck in a room, like Tam said, and here where we've got a little bit more freedom. Just trying to keep yourself busy, trying to keep a bit of perspective, I think is quite important as well, because it can be quite hard when you're stuck in a room with your own thoughts. So just trying to stay busy, and I think the fact that we're all going through it together as a team is quite nice as well, and we can stick heads out the windows and have little chats every so often, which is quite nice as well.
You're better off than my producer friend, actually, who was in Dubai and was in isolation for 2 weeks, and he couldn't even open the window. So at least you got that, I suppose.
There's always someone worse off, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, isn't it? And when do your matches start? You've got, is it 3 T20s and 3 ODIs?
Yeah, that's right. So we've got a really good build-up, which is great, because obviously the first week here we can't train. So I think the first game is the 23rd of February at Christchurch. And yeah, we've got 3 ODIs followed by 3 T20s.
Do you ever get, do you ever hear, when you're in these situations, do you ever hear sort of thumping on the wall because either people want some attention or they're playing catch with a tennis ball?
Sophie Eccleston reckons she heard someone throwing a ball against the wall and then hitting it back, but no one owned up on our team WhatsApp group, and it soon stopped after she asked. So yeah, no one's owning up, but I think a few are. My secret actually at the moment is table tennis cricket with the table tennis ball, because you can't do any damage. The only damage we've been doing, and admittedly you need 2 people to play this, but you could bounce it off the wall. But the only damage is when I try and hook and I actually hit the bat onto the ceiling of the kitchen.
So there's a few scuff marks on the ceiling from table tennis cricket, but yeah.
We have got sock throws in our programme, actually.
Have you?
I was throwing some socks against, I'm next door to Nat and Catherine. So there was a bit of banging from me throwing socks against their wall. And I've been hearing Nanny cackling at some Netflix programme most of the day. She's not the quietest neighbour. So yeah, it's quite nice to know someone's next door there, I think.
What is sock throwing? I mean, just throwing a sock, is it?
So if you get 1 or 2 pairs of socks and put them in a ball, they're quite good to keep your arm going and throw against the wall.
Oh,
just a little thing to try and
brilliant.
Keep obviously your cricket skills going and your shoulder.
And you could do diving catches on the bed as well.
Yeah, I haven't got that far yet.
She's been doing that. Tash Barrett said she's been doing that, so at least she's owned up for doing some. But our SSC coach has had a bit of a field day coming up with exercises we can do in quarantine. He loves kind of being creative. So I remember in Australia we had one that was like was it a bench? No, leg press of the bed or something. It was
I've seen on the Monty Panesar channel, if anyone hasn't seen it.
God, the Monty channel. It's a revelation. I don't think that many people actually do follow it, but he's trying his best. Simon, have you watched the Monty channel?
I've seen a little bit on the Monty channel, yeah. Snippets that obviously get posted on social media. Perhaps we should focus on the virtual cricket club. One thing strikes. So when you came out, did you fly out on a commercial airline, or did you have a charter flight out to New Zealand? And if so, what was it like? I mean, were you all masked up the whole way? I mean, it's a heck of a long way to get to New Zealand. You have to wear a mask for however many hours. What was the situation?
Yeah, it was about 32-hour flight from London, and no, we just went on a commercial airline. I actually had a bit of a cut from the mask. We had to wear it the whole way, pretty much. If you didn't get dropped off by a member of your household, you had to wear it from the minute you left your door all the way through the airport, all the time on the aircraft. We were lucky on the first leg that we were sort of in our own cabin part, but the other time we were all spread out and with members of the public. But obviously, you know that they've all done a test sort of 72 hours before they've got on the flight. But at the same time, it's a little bit nerve-wracking knowing how strict it is here on all our kind of training privileges are on that we have all negative tests. So it was quite nerve-wracking. And yeah, by the time I got here, I had a big cut across the nose and pretty kind of tense on the face. And I think it just gave me a lot of appreciation for NHS staff that probably wear much more uncomfortable equipment than what we had to wear for a few hours.
And were you all, I mean, was the plane full, or was it half full, or what was it like? I mean, it almost seems as if, I mean, I live on Heathrow Airport flight path, and there's, you look up, oh, there's a plane, and it's rare. So, how many people are actually flying at the moment?
It's a lot busier than I thought, actually, at Heathrow. I was quite surprised because obviously there's a travel ban. It was okay. It wasn't too busy. There was still people flying. We went via Dubai and then Kuala Lumpur. So yeah, it wasn't too busy, but a bit busier than I thought it might be.
Yeah, gosh. So you're there now. I mean, that great sense of relief, because actually, I mean, you're in a great position, aren't you? I know you've got to do this quarantine, but it's probably good to get out of the country for a few weeks. I mean, everyone's locked down here, and you're there in the summer. And Joseph was actually talking about there might not be much applause, but I mean, presumably there are going to be some crowds at your games, are they? Are they going to be allowed? I mean, we watched the Test cricket from New Zealand over here, the Pakistan series, and Mount Maunganui, the crowds just looked like they were when England played there 14 months ago. The England men's team played there 14 months ago.
Yeah, I think
as long as we get through the 14 days, it's going to be like normal life, as long as nothing changes, as it often does in the COVID landscape. But yeah, we're going to be allowed crowds. We're going to be allowed to live like normal human beings, which is obviously a massive carrot and makes sitting in a room for 14 days very much worth it. And yeah, I think we're just super lucky, really. I think it's a really important tour for us as a side, and obviously getting women's international cricket back on is pretty important at the moment as well, because there hasn't been a huge amount of it, although Pakistan and South Africa are playing the series at the moment, which is great. So yeah, just super lucky to be able to come out here and carry on doing our jobs.
And who was the driver behind that? I mean, how did it come about, this tour? Were you privy to that?
That's one for Heather, I think.
Well, it's always, obviously this slot was down to be a 50 over World Cup, so we had a slot, and we were desperate when the ECB were desperate for us to have some cricket this winter, and New Zealand wanted to get us over. Originally we wanted to do a tri-series with Australia women as well, but there's quite a few different cricket teams, including the men's Australian team and the Bangladesh men's team, I think, are coming into New Zealand. So to limit the amount of teams in at the same time, they excuse me, decided it wasn't, the New Zealand government decided it wasn't best for the country for us to have that series against Australia as well. So yeah, we've only got 6 games, which we'd obviously want more, but yeah, it was just the fact that the ECB and the New Zealand cricket was so desperate to get it on, and I can't fault them at all. They've been so amazing, and the things that have gone on, our staff were doing Zoom calls on Christmas Day to try and get everything sorted and prepared for obviously us to come out here, because there's so much logistics and medical protocols that go into getting a trip like this on.
I suppose you must be in good form, having, you both played in the Big Bash, didn't you? The Women's Big Bash, and you both played in the same side, and you ended up winning. So Tammy, what was that experience like? Is that, how many times have you played in the Big Bash, and what was it? How did it compare this time?
So I think that was my 4th time in the Big Bash, 3rd team. At first, it kind of felt like a sort of underage festival vibe, because absolutely every team, every player, every member of staff was all in the same sort of hotel. And, you know, it's kind of, it took me back to when I was sort of 16, 17 down at Taunton School.
Festivals. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like Mean Girls in the canteen, wasn't it, Tam?
Yeah.
Trying to find out where to sit.
Not sure if you've seen Mean Girls. I hope you have, because it's a great film. But it sort of has sections. So in the canteen there was like these big 8 tables, and it was almost like, you know, who's the jocks, who are the cool kids, who are the geeks, and you know, it was like, can I sit here at first? But no, it was actually a lot of fun. And I think for me personally, joining a new team and being in that environment, it meant that you bonded a lot quicker with your team. And I think that's why, as a Sydney Thunder, probably ended up winning, actually, because some of the teams maybe on paper had slightly stronger lineups, but I felt our team in particular, hopefully Heather will back me up on this one, really stuck together and really looked after each other really well. And I think that does show in tournament cricket. The teams that get on the best and really have that kind of ethos do end up getting a lot further. But obviously Heather being outstanding all tournament probably also helped us win the tournament.
I'm not sure about looking after each other, Tam. I came back to my room one night and my mattress had disappeared.
It was out of love.
Who was that?
All the pranks were out of love.
Young Phoebe Litchfield, I think, might have been the chief candidate.
Ooh.
So there was a lot of pranking going on.
I love that you think it was
as the
Phoebe.
England captain, I think I bared the brunt of most of it. I got my own back though. I did get my own back. You got your own back quite well.
That's great. Nice to hear. You played in the final. So I've forgotten what ground was it at mostly? It was nearly all at the same venue.
There was four grounds we used. So the semi-final and final was at North Sydney Oval.
North Sydney, yeah, which of course is where the World Cup final was. You know, before you guys played. I find this sort of fascinating, actually, that Isha, who was our guest a month ago, said that her World Cup final 2009 was played at North Sydney Oval in front of 2,500 people. And now, obviously, you got the T20 World Cup final in the MCG, which was full, 80,000. I mean, it's amazing. Both of you played the game professionally, you know, at England level for the best part of a decade. So you might, I mean, the changes have been immense, really, haven't they?
Yeah, massively. Even in the last few years, it feels like it's gone to another level again, and it's actually so exciting to be involved and see where it could go in the next 5-10 years. So yeah, the way it's changed, I think I made my debut back in 2010 in India in front of one person and his dog, and the girls coming into the side now are making their debuts in front of full houses at grounds in England and all over the world. So yeah, that aspect of the game has changed massively, but I think also the professionalism of the game, the standard has just gone through the roof, really. And tournaments like the Big Bash, like the Kia Super League, and now hopefully the 100 have really helped to accelerate that as well.
And what, Tammy, what do you think, what particular element of the women's game has improved the most, would you say?
I think it's twofold a little bit. I think the power hitting and sort of six hitting has massively changed, and also the fielding. And I think that's probably down to the same sort of thing, having strength and conditioning programs or things that are making you more athletic. I think that's showing through in those two areas in particular. I think I remember playing back in the 2016 World Cup, and there was something like 10 sixes across the whole T20 World Cup in India. And now you see that in one game. So yeah, I think that's probably the biggest change in women's cricket.
What sort of physical preparation do you do then? I mean, what would be your week in terms of I don't know, weights, gym, running, whatever it is? How are you doing that conditioning? What goes into it?
Is that in quarantine or in a normal week?
And normally, yeah. I mean, obviously, quarantine is such a difficult situation. Perhaps you have been limited. I don't know in the lead up to this tour as well. I know the men were practicing at Loughborough. I don't know whether you were able to go to Loughborough before this tour. But in a sort of normally, what would you be doing to prepare for a series physically?
Yeah, so normally we'd be up at Loughborough, and we were up at Loughborough in the lead up to this tour. So we're up there for 3-4 days a week, and then the rest of the physical training is done remotely. It's been quite a strange lead up to this tour, actually, because we've been in groups of 4 for the last 2 weeks to try and limit the amount of contact time, and it was one of the stipulations of the New Zealand government of us coming over. So that was quite weird, actually, because especially as captain, because usually you want to sort of see how everyone's getting on, where they're at with their cricket and other things. So I feel like, Tammy, I didn't really see you at Loughborough at all, because we were in different groups. So it feels quite strange in that sense. But yeah, obviously in quarantine as well, with physical training, it's been slightly different. We're having to be very inventive. We've got an exercise bike and a few bands, and trying to get what you need in is quite hard, but it's a different way to be inventive and find different things. I think the fast bowlers probably the ones that suffer the most from not being able to obviously get out and bowl, because it's such a unique physical skill that has unique demands on the body. So I think they'll need a little bit of time to build up before we obviously play. But that's the reason we came out as early as we could to try and get that real preparation before we do start playing international cricket.
But I mean, normally, you doing? How would a week look? I mean, are you doing like 4 gym sessions a week? Are you running? How long do your weight sessions last? What sort of things are you doing? I mean, you're talking about the quick bowlers. How do they physically prepare generally for a series?
Yeah, so when we got yeah, I think when we got a bit of time away from a series in a good training block, we'll probably be doing 3 weight sessions a week, a couple of running sessions, and like a sort of speed session to work on our sort of sprint techniques or turns and things like that are quite important to cricket. On a tour, it goes down to probably 2 weight sessions a week, and they tend to be sort of 45 minutes to an hour long. Our S&C coach is pretty good at just making sure that it's what you need to do and not spending hours in the gym, unless you're like me and quite like that. But yeah, it's all kind of quite specific stuff. And fast bowlers will do something quite different to myself, and Heather and I probably still do quite different programs as well. We've obviously got quite different needs. So yeah, it's all kind of tailored to the individual, but mainly fast bowlers, it's all about getting like the core strong and making sure that the backs are good. Particularly, I think women potentially get more stress fractures at a younger age, so it's quite important to make sure that we really look after our fast bowlers.
Do you enjoy training, or do you find it just a bit of a chore, both of you?
I think there's different times for different people. Like Heather loves to go out on a bike or go out on a run, whereas that's my idea of hell. Whereas I love the gym. I think it depends on you as an individual. But yeah, there's certain times where it's a bit of a chore to go out on a run in the cold in England. But you have to get it done. It's been our sort of job for quite a long time. If going to the gym's your job, you should embrace that and be pretty grateful that is your job sometimes.
And have you been to New Zealand before? Played much, both of you? Have you played there before?
Yeah, I've been here twice now, I think.
Right.
Yeah, 2 trips. So 2015 was our last trip here, so that's quite a long time since we have played here. And the World Cup, the 50th World Cup's been moved to next year now, so it's going to be quite nice for us to get a gauge of conditions. A lot of the girls won't have played here. But yeah, it's a place I love coming. It's an absolutely amazing country.
I love it. Yeah.
So beautiful. Just flying over it, coming in, it was amazing to look out the window and see the mountains and lakes, and obviously cricket as well. It's a great place to play. I've had really good experiences here, so hopefully it's a really good trip.
In honour of your visit, I've got a New Zealand T-shirt on here actually, which has got sort of New Zealand words on it. You know, the typical fush and chops is the sort of centerpiece of it. They got some weird. I played a lot in New Zealand actually, and they got these weird phrases like that you're fair sucking the kumara there, which means you've had a bit of bad luck, because the kumara is a horrendously tasting fruit, which if you suck it is really bitter. So there's the fair suck of the kumara means, you know, bad luck. And they talk about packing a sad, things like that, for if you're looking a bit pissed off. And I just love New Zealand. I think it's the most fun. You're very lucky. We're very jealous. Have you been before, Tammy? Kumaras. Yeah, stay away from kumaras. Tammy, have you been many times before?
I came here in 2012, one of my first tours, I think. And actually, we stayed in this hotel, and it was actually being held up by scaffolding still after the earthquake.
Wow.
So I barely recognised it when we walked in. We are in a different section, but yeah, they've definitely done it up. But yeah, I'm glad I'm back. I've been here on a family holiday once, and it was just incredible. So yeah, I'm going to make the most of it. We're very lucky at the moment with everyone back in lockdown and everything, that, you know, I think I haven't even thought about the cricket yet. Just thinking about going to a restaurant or a coffee shop, to be honest. But yeah, it's a beautiful country. I can't wait to explore a bit.
Christchurch looking. We were there. I don't think I was there last, probably 14 months ago, something like that. And you could still see the effects of the earthquake, you know, a few years later. Is it still looking as if it's been rebuilt?
Well, we haven't really seen much of we.
We're
opposite Hagley Park.
You'd have come in from the airport, wouldn't you? So you haven't had a chance to see very much as you come in.
Not really. No, it looked. There wasn't any sort of signs of the earthquake. There's a few building works going on, which might still have been from the earthquake. But I remember last time we were here going into the centre, and it was still a long time after the earthquake, and the whole centre is pretty much shut down, and the remnants of the cathedral were still there, which was quite shocking to see actually. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going in and hopefully seeing the progress of what's happened. I think last time they had these massive container, so the big shipping boxes, they'd made them into all sorts of shops and cafes, which was really cool actually. So I don't know whether they've made those permanent. I'm looking forward to getting through 2 weeks and hopefully going to have a look.
Yeah. Let's play it. Sorry, go on.
I spent New Year's Eve in front of the cathedral in like the sort of centre there with my family the year before the earthquake, and then obviously it's so surreal to me to see it, and I actually really want to go to the museum this year to kind of understand a bit more about it, because I obviously saw it before and sort of after. Yeah, so that's something I want to do anyway.
Ben Stokes' mother.
Well, the New Zealand women's team. Sorry, Simon.
Sorry. No, go on.
I was going to say.
You carry on.
I think the New Zealand women's team were actually in the centre when the earthquake happened, because they had a series against Australia. I think they were getting off the bus. So a lot of them saw a lot of very shocking stuff and were really deeply affected by it. And it was a huge thing, obviously, at the time in Christchurch. So yeah, I'm going to join you at the museum, I think, Tam, to know a bit more about it.
Nice. Well, listen, talking of history, let's briefly recap one of presumably the highlight of your joint careers. I've just got a short clip of the closing stages, or the second innings rather, of the 2017 World Cup final. So you can just revel in this for 5 minutes. It doesn't sort of majorly feature either of you, but I know you're both on the field and egging Anya on here. So let's just play this little bit.
That is the end of Mandani. Right on target from Stropsel. go on the front foot, but she didn't take a big enough step.
Well, that's a decent shout. She's got her. Panamra goes. Shrubsole takes the wicket.
Oh, it's gone straight up. Fielder coming under it. Another slow from Veda Krishnamurthy. Seemed like matter of time. Just taking far too many chances for me. Siva takes the catch. Veda Krishnamurthy is gone. A ball gone through. Chulan Goswami is gone. And India have lost their 7th wicket and losing their grip on the finals here. Oh, it's gone up in the air. Could be out. Yes, taken. Dipti Sharma is gone. India have lost their 9th, but more importantly, Dipti Sharma is walking back. Ball was the last pair. So you can expect something like that to happen. So England have won the World Cup. And it's the 4th time they've done that.
Well, does that feel like yesterday still?
No, it feels like a long time ago now, actually.
It was an amazing day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really
Yeah, it
was.
was. It just the whole day was amazing to be a part of. Really, it really felt like part of the history of the game and a real landmark moment. The fact that Lords was sold out, I think we found out just after we'd won that semi-final that we were going to be playing at a sold-out Lords, which was something I never thought I'd see, to be honest. And knowing the amount of people that watched it around the world was pretty mental as well. And yeah, just the drama of the day. It even started raining as they needed sort of 20 runs and we needed 6 wickets, whatever it was. And watching it back as well, I still can't believe we won that game, to be honest. It didn't feel like it ever slipped away for us when we were playing, but if you watch it back and look at what the score was and what they needed, it's remarkable really that we were able to somehow steal the game and win.
Hello, Snorts here. Very quickly, Simon Summon, I'm bringing in a first extra special guest.
Excellent. Okay, great. So this is Phoebe.
exciting.
Hi, Phoebe Graham.
Hi, Phoebes.
Hi.
Hi guys, how are you doing?
Thank you for joining us. Great to see you. Round of applause. Thank you very much. We'd love to come on to your story in a minute. We're just actually recapping the brilliant World Cup of 2015, the 2017 final. And I just wanted to I've been interviewing some of the men's players from the 2019 final and recently, and getting different memories of that day. So some were sort of scarcely believed it. Others thought they could win all the time. They had that self-belief. They thought they were always going to win. Tammy, what about you? Did you feel, for you, was this the climax of all that you've prepared for, actually?
Yeah, it really was. I felt it was kind of ours for the taking the whole time. I actually watched that back, and at the time, I did not realize how close the game was. I remember being out at deep square leg when Harman Kaur hit a couple of sixes off one of our spinners, and I was like, there's a chance coming here. Like, once she gets out, we've got this. Like, not a problem. It's gonna come. And then it happened to come to me, and I was like, don't drop this. But for me, it was always like, no, we're just gonna get another wicket here. We're just gonna get another wicket here. And I actually thought we won by about 20. And it was only about 6 months later when we did sort of a rewatch, and it was 9 or whatever it was.
Yeah,
I was
9.
like, it was that close. Honestly, in my mind, we were walking that game, which I think is pretty stupid thinking looking back. But for me, it was always kind of our game to win, and it just felt right. It felt like it was the story. That was the story. India had beaten us in the first game. We'd come back really well. We'd beaten Australia. We'd beaten South Africa. Home ground. There was no chance we were going to lose it. And the girls that had won it in 92 and was it 73 were at the ground and given medals before the game, and Eileen Ash, the oldest living England cricketer, rang the bell, and the minute's silence for sort of Rachel Hayhoe Flint. I was like, it's all about England here. So yeah, for me it for me, I never felt like we were going to lose that game.
That's exactly funny enough. That Moeen Ali says that he told the players throughout the series of the World Cup, this is ours. This is our destiny to win this. Heather, did you what sort of messages did you use through that? You know, because there were periods when you probably didn't play as well, and obviously there's a lot of expectation being at home as well. So how did you keep the self-belief going?
Yeah, well, we obviously lost that first game against India. We turned up at Derby and it was quite a turning wicket playing and slow wicket playing against India. And we didn't play particularly well. I think we, in hindsight, without saying it at the time, we probably choked a little bit under the pressure of the occasion and the pressure of being the host in a home World Cup. But I think actually that loss really helped us as a side because it kind of took away any expectation. I think a lot of people wrote us off. There was a lot of tweets going out, I think, saying no chance we were going to win the World Cup. And I remember having a conversation with Robbo, who's obviously the coach at the time, after that loss before we went into the changing rooms, and we made a decision to try and be really positive and really optimistic, despite the fact that we choked a little bit. So I think the messaging was all quite positive. We tried to keep inside our own little bubble. It's a massive cliche, but it really felt like we did that. A lot of us went off social media, and we just sort of built this real belief, I think. And the fact that we'd won really tight games throughout the competition really helped us in that final. We beat Australia in a really tight game. And I think that was what built that belief that Tammy said. And it did really feel like this is ours to win. This is our destiny sort of thing. And it's a very hard feeling to try and replicate. But it was a really amazing journey. And I think looking back as well, you forget all the bad things that go on because you only see it in the perspective of we won the competition. It must have been amazing. And Anya was actually really struggling during that competition. She wasn't bowling very well, not helped by the fact we kept dropping catches off her bowling, and she'd got into a bit of a rut and quite a negative headspace actually. So for her to turn that around and be able to put in that sort of performance in the final and to win us the match was remarkable, really.
How long did it take you to sort of come down from it? You know, the Lord's final, those spectators, and you know, you said it seemed a long time ago now. Were you sort of walking on a cloud for weeks and weeks afterwards, or was it actually, because I think the men said there was a bit of a sense of anticlimax afterwards. You know, you had that huge high, and then it was all gone. It was done. It was, you know, you'd won it, and you had to sort of go back to normal life in a way.
Yeah, I'd say it was an anticlimax. I think Heather came down quite quickly from the food poisoning she got that night. But
wasn't it alcoholic poisoning?
No, it wasn't actually. I was gutted. I'd only had one beer, and then I was being sick on a Merc round the corner in St John's Wood. So my celebrations were ruined a little bit. Yeah, dodgy chicken.
I mean, Liam Plunkett's had a real trouble coming down off the World Cup final. Well, and then it sort of hit him like a brick wall. Suddenly, real life has to go on, and I'm not even playing.
Well, I think for us it was sort of, yeah, like the next day we all left, and a week later we were playing in the Kia Super League against each other, and yeah, like obviously Heather missed the kind of celebrations. We had to get up at like 8 a.m. to do a media appearance at Lord's, and then it just sort of deflated, and that was kind of it. And we didn't ever really do like a big celebration night out ever.
Really?
And
you still haven't?
Yeah. No, still haven't.
And neither of the men, ironically.
No, we were trying to get us and the men together at one point for a big event, but it didn't work out for whatever reason.
I'm actually working on a documentary about the men winning the World Cup, so we're trying to put something together actually, which might well involve you guys as well. Hopefully, it's just difficult getting everyone together because everybody's playing everywhere all the time. I've got one sort of fairly sort of harsh question, which, you know, try and answer it as honestly as you can. Do you think we've capitalized as a nation on that tremendous success, your final success, enough? And if not, and I don't want to put words into your mouth here, what more could we do to really raise awareness of the women's game and get more girls and women playing?
I'll go first.
Yeah, okay, go on.
I think for me, I would say eventually we've caught up with it. We've finally got 40 professional cricket cricketers at domestic level. For my liking, it's too late, but at least now we have done it, because obviously we've only just done that this year, well, last year in 2020. You know, we won that in 2017. That's it's great that we've got that now, but it did take a little bit longer. I think the Super League really did take off for a couple of years. After that, certainly seemed to have a lot more people coming to games, a lot more interest. But yeah, to get to this stage to have those 40 cricketers is a great thing. But for my liking, I would have loved it to come a couple of years earlier and almost literally piggyback off that World Cup win.
Heather, I know you've got responsibility to the ECB in a way, but I'm sure they'd be, you know, if your criticism is constructive, they'll listen.
No, I think Tammy's hitting it on the head. I think a lot of progress has been made since that World Cup final. I think for me, a lot of people change their perceptions. Not just people watching it for the first time or fans, but people at the ECB. I think they really took note of that final and how the audience that watched it were young. A lot of them were female, and a lot of the audience was the audience that the ECB are targeting with 100. And I think perceptions at Lord's HQ changed a little bit, and people really saw the power. Saw the power of what the women's game could be and how it could benefit the ECB as a whole. So I think that was a real positive, and started to put in motion a lot of decisions that have obviously taken a little bit of time to come to fruition, as Tammy said. And I think hopefully in the years to come, we'll see the benefit of young girls coming through that have watched that game of cricket and taken up the game. I loved hearing the little stories, like Paul Collingwood couldn't get his daughters to play cricket. This is an ex-England men's captain, and as soon as they watched this day of cricket, they were desperate to get in the garden and have a knock around. So I think Tammy's right. I think progress has been a little bit slow, but I think there has been progress, and those seeds are starting to come to fruition now.
Where would you like to see the game in 10 or 20 years' time? Do you sort of have a vision for the game, or a sort of a goal for the women's game, or is that a bit too nebulous?
I think there shouldn't be any limits on where it can go. I think it's surprised me massively where it's gone since I made up my debut 10 years ago. But I think the global game, definitely, I think we were in a really good position here in England, and a few of the other boards like Australia are really taking women's cricket seriously. But I think globally, a lot of boards don't, and that can be a bit of a worry. And I think it's been even more exaggerated in COVID times, the differences. You've got some teams, India, Sri Lanka, they haven't played since March in that World Cup. India's last game was that World Cup final in front of 80,000 people. And the force that India are in cricket, I think if they start to take women's cricket seriously, it will really be a huge boost to the game. And I think more cricket as well, more regular cricket for international teams is going to be really important, because that's really accelerated the professionalism, I think, of players in this country, being able to play cricket and be in those big situations. I think playing in the Big Bash as well, Tammy, we played with a lot of young girls. We played with a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-olds, and some of the experiences they were having playing in front of big crowds on telly, massive games, Big Bash finals, just those youngsters having those experiences will accelerate their development so much. And I'd love to see that happen all around the world. And I think in the women's game as well, I think with the franchise leagues, we can do it a little bit differently for now, because I think they could be a real big part of the international calendar if they have windows to be played, because they've really helped players develop and take things back to their country. South Africa, for example, some of their players have grown massively playing in the Big Bash, and have gone back to their team and helped them start making semi-finals of world events quite regularly. So the
100 could have the same impact, I suppose. Yeah, Tammy. So Tammy, go on. I'll answer the same question. Yeah, Tammy.
I think Heather's hit it spot on from the global perspective. For me, I would love in 10, 15 years time to see a lot more competition globally as well. I think at the moment there's sort of the big 3 or 4 teams, and then sometimes after that the cricket is maybe not quite as exciting as you want to see. I'd love to see, you know, a strong India, Pakistan, you know, South Africa, New Zealand, like West Indies, all having the same kind of support that like we get in England and Australia. And I think, you know, making the game more exciting and more competitive across the world is a really good way of looking at it. Whether that will happen or not, I'm not so sure. But I think in our country, I think it's a great start having 40 players as professionals. But I think, you know, as Heather said, the kids in the Big Bash, the 17 to 20-year-olds, the reason they can cope with what's going on in the Big Bash is the fact that they've been on a program since they're 14, and they've been experiencing those sorts of things since they were 14. So I think that needs to happen here. We need to first get to the stage where we have at least 11 contracted at each Rachel Hayhoe Flint team, and then go from there to have, you know, a whole squad of 15, and then an academy set up, maybe not where they're paid, but that they're fully in the system and really kind of growing their game from quite a young age, like you do in the men's game. So yeah, I think for me that's where I'd love to see the game go.
Something Ebony said on the Test Match Special podcast recently, something she fears for the women's game is that Australia will be too dominant, because you mentioned it there. You know, they've got these programs that are bringing lots of girls through into the women's game. Is that a worry for both of you, that Australia are almost moving too far ahead? And I mean, that's obviously a challenge for English cricket, if you perhaps see yourself as chasing the Australians. How do you see that situation? Are you as concerned as her about that? She's sort of talking about an Australian decade, really, of dominance.
Yeah, I guess they have dominated in the last couple of years, particularly as we haven't played very well against them recently. I think the big difference and the concern probably comes with the depth that they have, and I think they're seeing the fact that they've had the Big Bash going for 6 years now, and players coming through are coming in straight into the team and performing. So I think we'll see that hopefully in the next few years with the new setup in England and the new professionalism below the England team, but it will take a bit of time. So I guess there's a little bit of jealousy there in terms of the depth of the players and the standard of the players that are coming through in the competition. So yeah, I think the gap in that is there at the moment. I still don't think there's a bigger gap as is perceived in the media between the two teams. I think we had a very bad Ashes series against them, whatever year it was, 2019 summer, and that sort of exaggerated it, I think. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to next year's Ashes. It's going to be an absolute belter. Away in Australia is something we've put a lot of preparation into, and it's going to be a huge year for us as well. So yeah, hopefully we can do well then, and sort of end that Australian dominance that Ev talks about.
Let's bring in Phoebe, who's been waiting patiently there. And Phoebe, tell us your story. Tell us, how you got into cricket and why you made this career sort of defining decision recently.
So I started playing cricket when I was 12, 13, and was always involved in the junior sort of setups and academies. And then probably 2021 only played county cricket. So I was playing for Devon when I was down at Exeter. And then sadly, my father passed away, which was quite heavy for me in terms of my cricket and emotional state. So I had a few years off the game. And actually, interestingly, talking about the 2017 World Cup final, that was the game that I went to that made me want to play cricket again. It really sparked that hunger for me. I'd had 2.5 years off the game, and the development in the game from watching how far the game had come in terms of that athleticism, professionalism, the camaraderie, having a full house at Lord's. I just thought, I've missed this. I want to be back in that environment. And that's when I started playing, and played a little bit with Heather at Berkshire for 2 years. And then again, the investment from the ECB, putting new structures in place and these systems to enable you to train like an athlete, then made me want to be a professional cricketer. Like being able to have a strength and conditioning coach, consistent bowling coaches, consistent batting coaches was something I'd never, ever had. So that fire was in me from probably the winter. I was with the MCC Academy, and then COVID brought me back to Yorkshire, and playing in this environment, which I'd never been exposed to, was just something that is absolute hats off and credit to the ECB for investing in the game. But yeah, the decision to move from a marketing job at Sky wasn't easy, because I enjoy what I do. It wasn't like I was coming from a bad place, but that fire and desire to play cricket was never going away, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. And now to be able to focus on it and have the time and dedication to be the best possible athlete is incredible. And I think there's a lot of hunger now in the domestic game, which was maybe only at that international and super elite level in the UK. I think it's going to really develop the game across the whole country.
And what was the process actually of, deciding to leave your job at Sky? I mean, did you have to apply to be a professional player, or was it a sort of more or less an automatic progression?
So the tournament with the Rachel Hayhoe Flynn, I just made sure all the staff knew I wanted to be a professional cricketer.
Right.
But in a high performance environment, you've got to produce and show that you've got capability and that you've got that ability to develop. So I thought, I'm going to play my cards here and say I want to be a professional cricketer, but I didn't know whether it was going to happen or not. I didn't know whether they were looking for younger talent. They have Beth Langston, who's already a seamer. So you just don't know what people are looking for. So I just expressed my interest. And when James rang me, I think it was October time, I was just absolutely shell-shocked. And yeah, there was only one decision I could make then.
And what did your work colleagues think?
They were absolutely tough for me. I think I had a bit of an emotional chat with one of them, because I did really enjoy my job at Sky, but then my boss Ryan at the time just said, "This business world isn't going anywhere, Phoebes." So he really reassured me and sort of was like, "Go for it." And that, I don't think I'll ever look back.
Nice story, isn't it? Well, we all wish you, massive amount of luck. And can you just tell us, you've been doing this trip and flip thing. What can you explain that?
Yeah, so I set this up about a year or so ago, called Tip and Flip. And essentially, I think similar to the conversations that you've just been having with Tammy and Heather, is women's sport globally is at a tipping point. Different parts of the globe are investing at different stages in different areas of the game. Like women's basketball in the US is way ahead of any other sport in the world. But I think in order to reach its potential, perceptions need to be flipped. And I think through role models, through the media, through coaches, everyone's got a role to do to champion the game and really bring the game on to change those perceptions. So something that I'm exploring and able to explore a bit more with a bit more free time now as an athlete. But yeah, I think that's just a passion of mine.
And what is it? What are these sort of misconceptions about the game, the women's game, that people hold generally, all of you? I mean, what annoys you about the way your game is perceived?
Oh, good go on. But
Tick them off.
I think the main one, so it doesn't happen as often now, but you used to go somewhere and someone would be like, "What's your job?" And I'm like, "Oh, professional cricketer." That you get paid for that. I'm like, well, that's my job. Like, I wouldn't be saying that otherwise. I think the main one is sort of people sort of say, "Oh, women can't bowl as fast," that sort of thing, and it's not as good, therefore. But a lot of people that went to the Lord's final, actually, some of the MCC members I spoke to later on down the track, they said it was great. It was the first time I actually saw the ball live. So actually, because it was a bit slower, they could actually see where the ball was going. So therefore, they enjoyed it more. And I think, just because we maybe don't bowl as fast, I think it actually creates a slightly more different skill set. You know, bowlers actually have to do a bit more to get batsmen out. Batsmen maybe have to score in slightly different areas because they can't use the pace. And yeah, you know, slightly men's cricket might be more fast and a little bit more powerful and a few more sixes going into the second tier. But I think if you kind of just appreciate women's cricket for what it is, it's still incredibly skillful. It's not a lesser version of men's cricket. It's just a slightly different skill set. It's still an incredibly high level of skill. It's just slightly has to work slightly differently.
Is it in a way irritating that people still compare men's and women's cricket? Why? I mean, they don't, you know, we don't compare men's and women's tennis or golf really. So why should they compare cricket, I suppose? Does that annoy you?
I think when you look on something on Twitter that's about women's cricket and it's like, oh, our third 11 fast opening bowler could bowl quicker than this, or oh, I'd smash you if I batted against you. It's like, well, would you? Or, you know, where are you coming from to have that sort of opinion and criticize? I think that's sometimes difficult to take, but I think as you get a bit older, you just learn to ignore it. But yeah, I think that sometimes is harsh.
Alex Hartley, is Alex Hartley here? I don't know if she turned up or not. Did you see her name, Noughts, at all? Because Alex Hartley posted a cheeky tweet this week, didn't she? When a Big Bash player dropped a simple catch, and she said something like, "Can't believe it's equal pay for these guys," or something. That unleashed a tsunami of aggressive tweets from people. I guess it's just better to switch Twitter off, is it? Heather, you know, moments like that.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with Tammy actually in terms of comparison to the men's game. I think sometimes we're looked at through a different lens, and I think that's the point Alex was making in a cheeky way with her tweet. I think we've had games where test matches, for example, where it has been a little slow, we've played on a slow wicket and it's been quite attritional game, and then you look at a men's game and it's similar. They're scoring at times when it's not a great test match to watch, sometimes slowly, and I think the purists are like, oh, how great is this proper test cricket? And whereas when it's the women's game, it's oh, this is rubbish, shouldn't play test cricket. So that frustrates me sometimes when we're judged on a different level, I think. And I guess another annoyance is when people talk about when they drop in, they maybe see one or two women's games, and then suddenly they're saying we should change the size of the pitch and little things like that, which I think can be quite patronising, especially as it's often by people that sort of jump into the game for one tournament potentially and don't know the.
Would that help maybe for younger girls? Do you think that?
I do think it would help for younger girls, and I think they do that at the moment, as they do with junior men's cricket. I played a lot of junior men's cricket, and I think it's 19, 20 yards. And to 21, maybe when you're under 12, something like that. And yeah, I think it definitely does help with women's girls cricket. Sorry, growing up, it lets bowlers have a potentially stronger action because young girls don't necessarily have that strength. That's when to get it further, they maybe have to change the trajectory of the ball and not have that proper sort of snap when you bowl. So it's definitely got a place, and that does happen in youth women's and boys cricket at the moment.
Simon, we should go to the sorry, go on, Tammy. Was it
just to add to that, I found like we had a few quite quick girls in my sort of Kent team growing up, but it was like anything down leg sides or wide. So obviously those girls are going to slow down and bowl straight. So actually it's not necessarily the pitch length is a big thing when you sort of 13, 14, but actually when you got to sort of 16, 17, there was a couple of girls that could get it down there, but it was going a little bit everywhere. And because you want to win, or you know, you don't want to be embarrassed, you suddenly slow it down and try and bowl straight. Or the girls that do bowl slow but straight get more of a go, so get a bit further. So actually there's a little bit in the laws of the game as well. Like, you know, we need to encourage quick bowlers. I think boys get to play sort of 2-day games where they can spray it around a bit more but try and bowl fast. Whereas I think obviously we're never going to play 2-day cricket at age group level for young girls because we don't play test cricket. But actually if we could somehow make it a little bit more leeway in what we're doing, I think you'd probably see a few more kind of do that, because I think you do get that, oh, I'm bowling a lot of wides, I've got to finish my over, I'm not going to get another over, I'll slow it down and bowl straight. a
I
little
think that
bit.
would have helped me. I was 5'11" at 12 years old, so I've
Wow.
never been in
Really?
control of my limbs.
Yeah, I remember playing with CBG for Yorkshire, and she was certainly a talent, but there was certainly a lot of girls that did kind of have to do that.
Lauren Bell, I saw when she was 14, actually, and she went for it, and she's improved a lot, hasn't she, over time? But has she lost pace, actually? Would you say?
I think she had done a little bit, but then she got on the academy a couple of years ago, and they worked on her really charging in. So I do think she's got a bit of extra pace, but again, she swings it so much that in playing women's county cricket 50 overs, she gets penalised for trying to swing the ball, and it obviously will go down leg. Like, she's obviously improved a lot now, but as a 15-year-old, like that's quite tough.
Yeah, it is. You're quite right, because my daughter was a good quick bowler, actually, and funnily enough, she bowled exactly the same action as me, weirdly. And yeah, I know what you mean, though. You over time you get penalised for bowling on the leg side, so you sort of go a bit more on the cautious side. Just one very quick question. We'll go to the audience. I just want to know just one. This is a one-sentence answer. Presumably, all of you got introduced to the game by a male figure. Heather?
Yeah, so I had an older brother that played.
So he got you going, did he? And
yeah.
Tammy?
Yeah, my older brother and dad, they played.
And in your case, Phoebe, it was your dad, was it?
Yeah, that's right. It's actually a lady that ran his sports shop there and said, do any of the girls want to play in the interval of a test game? Otherwise, I don't think I would have played, because there weren't any girls playing in the lads team, and it wasn't something he really encouraged. So it took a phone call from someone else, but it was great.
Have any of you met a player, either male or female, who was introduced to the game by a woman or a girl? Because I haven't, and I haven't met any. I've asked all the England players and lots of county players.
I met so we had a England players dinner a couple of years ago, and it was a really nice day, actually. The current players presented caps to former players, and on my table there was a lady who had played for England, and it was her PE teacher, who was a woman who had also played for England, who introduced her to cricket. And then actually they still had to pay for their blazers and things back then, and the girl couldn't afford it, and the PE teacher gave her old England blazer to the player to allow her to go on an England tour. But yeah, so she got introduced by a woman, but she had played for England.
So this is what we have to change, because we're only tapping into half the population by relying on male figures to introduce people to cricket. More women play the game, they can take an interest, whether it's coaching, watching, scoring, or playing. The more 80% of teachers, primary school teachers, are women, the more they'll introduce the game at school rather than gymnastics or football or netball or whatever. I just think, I think that is the key turning point, is the more women who can persuade people to play the game will get twice as many people playing.
I do think that is changing. I think all three of us here are sort of pretty much 30. So I reckon if you asked a few 20-year-olds or younger, they would definitely be introduced by a few women. The number of girls that we used to play with now have gone into maybe coaching, Danny Hazel at the Diamonds and things like that. I think it is changing. There's a lot of girls that have left university, excuse me, and become cricket coaches. A lot of girls that didn't quite make it, that had maybe been on the England Academy, actually work at private schools now as the women's cricket coach. So I do think it is massively changing, and I think, it won't be long before we'll see an England player or domestic player come along that did get introduced from just women or through school or something like that. But yeah, certainly all our generation, I think that 2017 World Cup, all of us had an older brother or dad that introduced us to cricket. We did actually work it out at one point. I think Danny Hazel was the only child. The rest all had brothers, but I think it is changing. And
Phoebe, you presumably, as you're not part of the England setup, you might have a bit more time as a professional. So is part of your job now to coach as well as play?
It isn't actually, but it's something that I'm getting into and just finishing off my coaching qualification. But no, our time is dedicated to just being a professional cricketer, which is amazing. And we're in 3 days a week, so we've got the other 2 days to do things like this. And I think it is part of our responsibility to help raise the profile of the game and to keep the hunger in the domestic level of the game.
Simon, shall we go to the
Viewers'
readers'
questions.
Readers' questions.
Viewers' questions.
Right, so I'm going to give you a list here. Robert Lee, Ian Wigston, Amanda Hassell, Richard Shelley. Hopefully you're all here.
Voice is coming in again, Simon, everybody. Voice is coming in again. I'll tell you two things. Number one, Alex Harley isn't here because she's too busy trolling misogynists on Twitter. Right?
Fine.
And
yeah.
secondly, Robert Lee isn't in the room, but you could ask his question, so he is lined up to come on next.
Okay. We've sort of, well, okay, quick answer on this one. Tammy, from Robert Lee, says, how much of a difference did it make walking out to a sold-out Lords for the final? And did the crowd lift you? Or was it a case of being focused on what they were trying to achieve, so you didn't really notice the crowd? Tammy?
I didn't actually notice the crowd until so I didn't face the first ball back then. Lauren and I actually had a bit of an argument the first time we opened together as to who wanted it. So it was only on that first ball where I was at the non-strikers end and I could hear the sort of ooh sort of coming up, and then there's like a split second where it's silent just before the ball's hit, and then afterwards it was sort of like clapping. And I think that was when it really hit me how much the crowd was going to play a part. And for me, that whole kind of World Cup was about kind of it being my stage and everyone's here to watch. And so for me, that really got me going and really kind of helped me that there was actually probably it was easily the biggest crowd I've ever played in front of. So yeah, for me,
Phoebe, you were in the crowd, were you? Or were you watching on telly?
I was in the crowd supporting.
So what was that like? What was that like?
Oh, incredible. So great. The atmosphere was unbelievable. And the second half, I mean, just watching it back, being there was one of the best moments, probably best sporting events I've ever been to.
What made it? Yeah, where were you sitting and what made it good? So good.
Just the cricket. It's cricket at its best, isn't it? It's probably, if I was at the World Cup final at 2019, that's cricket at its best. And when cricket's at its best, it's a close game. It's a close finish. You can't predict it. And that's exactly what the game gave. So yeah, it was just brilliant to watch. It was a sporting spectacular. And to watch some of your friends out there was added a cherry on the cake, really, to an incredible sporting event.
Ian Wigston, yeah, Noughts, you were thinking ahead here. So Ian, you got a cracking question. So yeah. Good evening, and
good evening.
Thank you for supporting again, of course.
Not at all. And great to have Amanda and Liz here as my new members.
Well done.
Really enjoying the conversation. Question for each of you. If you were sports minister, what would you do to encourage girls in state schools to take up the game?
Heather?
Good question. Tough question. I think it's really helped that cricket is now overtaking rounders a little bit. As much as I love playing rounders, I feel like cricket has a lot of things to give a young person in terms of...
Rounders is a bollocks game. It's just a beach game.
Not just on the pitch, but sort of how you interact with people and leadership and things like that. So I think that's massively helped. I think the big thing is a change in perceptions, really. There's a massive drop-off of teenage girls at sort of 14 or 15 where it's not really cool to be a sportswoman. I think that's starting to change. And it's helping that in society it's become more acceptable to be a woman in sport, and there's more role models, there's more coverage of women's sport, which is making younger people want to stay playing sport. But that big drop off is a real key issue, I think, that needs to be addressed. How you do that, I'm not entirely sure. It's quite a complex issue. But...
Right, well, Tammy, that's your job then. How do you solve that?
Well, I didn't quite hear that last bit, but for me, I think I think they need to fund PE and physical education in the first place. Like, I hear about so many cuts. My old school, like, I did every sport under the sun at my old school, anything to get me out of the last lesson of the day. But I hear now that they're having to cut their extracurricular activities. So the first thing would be to fund all sports, let alone cricket. And then I think the other one is, like Simon said earlier, educating teachers on how to run cricket. I remember I actually took the cricket lessons for girls when I was in year 8 because my teacher didn't know how to set up a game of cricket. And I'd already been coaching like 8-year-olds down at the local cricket club. So I just set up a quick cricket match, and the teacher was like, oh, this is actually really easy. I'm going to do it with another class. And I was like, yeah, it's not difficult. Like, there's loads of ways around it. So I think educating the teachers on how to do a cricket lesson, making it less complicated, just making it about hitting a bat and ball to begin with, is a really easy way to get kind of, particularly female teachers that maybe haven't experienced cricket to learn how to do it.
Phoebe, anything to add to that?
I think probably making the teachers aware of these high performance environments as well, and whether you can take talent scouts a bit like they did with the Olympics to find who these high performing athletes are, because a lot of people have played a lot of different sports and have come from a football, rugby, hockey background, and so being able to spot that talent across different schools and putting them into the structures. But I don't think a lot of people are aware of the structures in the new domestic league and how to get involved as well. So I think there's education around that, as well as normalising perceptions, which hopefully it's changing, but I still think it's got a long way to go.
I wonder if, just to throw one other thing in, my daughter was, a really talented player and got a scholarship to her secondary school, sports scholarship, which was a mixed school. And because she had a sports scholarship and she was good at cricket, she was put straight into the boys, under 12s or whatever, and absolutely held her own. And at the time, she was the only girl playing cricket in the school, and everyone else, they did, as you said, Heather, they played rounders in the summer or tennis or whatever. And she stayed in the boys team through her school career, actually started playing in the first team when she was 15, opening the batting and holding her own. And it just transmitted this message to the rest of the school, the girls in the school. Shit, you can play cricket and play in the boys teams, and it's a viable thing to do. And within 3 years of her playing in the junior teams, boys teams, they canned rounders and they started playing girls cricket. And the take up on it was incredible. And so sports will be covered on a Wednesday afternoon by all girls playing, and they took over almost the awards night. So from a period where there was only boys at the awards night plus Nancy as the one girl playing in boys teams, suddenly there were 40 boys and 60 girls at the awards night for all the different year groups. Absolutely amazing. And it just took one person. So I wonder whether scholarships for girls cricketers in sort of 10 and 11 going to secondary schools can have that sort of effect. You just need one person, don't you, to sort of blaze a trail, really.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, as well as Tammy said earlier, private schools now are having female heads of crickets, which is amazing. And obviously you want it in every school in the country, but I guess the men's game started out heavily in private schools, and that's going to really be of big benefit, because if there's a female teacher, a female role model who knows cricket and knows the game well, that's going to be huge for a youngster that might be lost to another sport because they're a talented athlete. So yeah, I think that's really useful.
Amanda Hassell has joined us. Amanda, welcome to the club. I think this is your first week, so great to have you on. I know you come from good cricketing stock, don't you? Your dad was chief executive of Yorkshire, was he?
Yes, right? That's right. Yeah, Lancashire for 12 years and then Yorkshire, and then he's also massively involved in English schools cricket when he retired as well. So yeah, unfortunately I never got to play, but I've grown up absolutely loving the game and watching it. And I just want to say thank you to the three ladies there for for promoting in women's cricket so brilliantly, and you're all, you know, fantastic role models. It's been a real pleasure to listen to you tonight.
And what's you've got a question, haven't you? Which I only saw half of it, so you know, far away.
So sorry, girls, because it's a bit it's a bit serious, and it suddenly occurred to me that you probably not read English newspapers, and you might not be wholly sort of up to speed. But there was an article this morning discussing a report on racism, and the Professional Cricket Association has given direction that all players are to attend anti-racism training before March, I think it is. So I just wondered whether you think that there is widespread racism in professional cricket, and do you think that that sort of measure will address it, and if not, what else could we do, particularly thinking about sort of leadership and in teams?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So
you can all have a go. Go on. Yeah, Heather, go on.
So obviously, if there's one instance of racism in the game, there's an issue. I think it's not hugely widespread, but I think it's quite hard for us to comment on people's experiences, obviously having not experienced it ourselves. But I think the results of this survey do show that there are things that goes on, and I think I've witnessed people say something dressed up as banter, which is probably quite an inappropriate thing to say. So I think, and I'm involved with the PCA, I sit on the board, and I think the rollout of the education will be quite eye-opening, I think, and really useful for the players to sit through. There's a number of different educational topics that we sit through each year as professional cricketers, and the programs the PCA do are really good. And I think it's going to be a really important piece of work to be able to roll out those educational programs, and for us as players to have a bit more awareness, because I think education and awareness is what it's all about, and how you perceive things and any unconscious bias that people may have. I think just being aware of it is really important, and ultimately leads to change.
Anyone else want to throw there?
Yeah, I think I agree with everything Heather's just said. I think, you know, people have been quite open over the summer as to some of the issues they've had. You know, I actually cried speaking to Ebony. Obviously, she did that amazing thing with Michael Holding on Sky. And yeah, I actually spoke to her afterwards, and there was times on tour where she let things slide, and I let things slide that did happen. So yeah, I think one instance is too many, and I think it's probably, yes, it's within cricket, but it's probably the population as a whole as well. So I think if, you know, cricket can start educating itself, hopefully it'll be for the best. And yeah, it is a tough topic, but it needs to be spoken about. I think, you know, the what's happened this summer has kind of, you know, awoken some people to what's going on, and I think it is quite often it is just ignorance or an unconscious bias, and it's not, you know, it is banter, but at the same time it's not. And yeah, I think the education will do a really good thing for cricket, and hopefully, you know, if we can start to change things, it will kind of spread out into the wider population.
You see even less black female cricketers than you do male now, don't you? I mean, you see lots of ethnic, you know, South Asians and so on, but you don't see many black female cricketers, not in England anyway. I know they're obviously the West Indies, but do you see many in the
less South Asians in women's cricket?
Really? Right.
Yeah, because I don't want to stereotype at all, but you know, there are some cultural you know, things, historical cultural things about women and sport. And I used to work for Chance to Shine, and I'd go into a lot of places like Leicester, Birmingham, and you'd see girls with so much talent at these like before school classes, and you'd say, oh, will you play at a club? No, I'm not allowed. Things like that. So there is definitely an area that needs to be targeted, and hopefully change that kind of perception, and kind of get more girls from both Black and South Asian populations into cricket, because there's so much talent there that's not being untapped, I think.
I think Ebony Rentford-Bridge has done an incredible job, and her ACE programme is brilliant to actually address the systemic change that needs to happen. So I think as soon as that can get rolled out across the UK to help increase that diversity and inclusion, not only do we need to be educated, but it become normalised just as male and female sport. I think we need to improve the diversity and inclusion in cricket, because it is a male pale dominant sport, and that's something that needs to be addressed. And I think the ECB are aware of it, and that's why things are changing. But the more we can all get behind it, the better.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Richard Shelley's here. Good evening,
Hi,
Richard.
everyone. Good evening. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Well, my question's around the development of the ladies' game. It's played great grounds the last 2 or 3 years, but it's all been around the shorter white ball format. Do you think there's a place for the longer red ball format in that development in the future? And if so, is it something you would enjoy playing?
I personally love playing Test cricket. I wish we played more. I would absolutely love to play a Test in India. I think that would be one of the best experiences of my career, probably. But unfortunately, at the moment, we actually, a few years ago, we did play in India at Wormsley a few years back. And since then, we haven't played any other tests other than the one Ashes test. And it's mainly because of its commercial value. It costs a lot to put on. Not many people watch it. Not many people go to it. And not many people support it. We tried to play against other countries, and their boards just say they just can't afford to put it on. And also, you know, that's the way it's going at the moment. People will go and watch an ODI, a women's ODI. People will go and watch a women's T20, and if not, they can put it as a double header. So what we've done in the Pakistan tour that we're going to in October, there's double headers with the men. So hopefully, you know, people will come and support that early, and that's kind of a really good thing to grow the game. And that's sort of where the game's at the moment. To grow the game, we've got to use the white ball format, and it would be great to kind of play more red ball cricket, but it would have to be a big investment. We play one test match every 2 years, and by sort of the third day we remember how to play it. We do sort of one free ball warm-up game the couple of weeks before, and then play a test match. So then it's not really that interesting, because we're still kind of working it out. Whereas if we did play a few a year, I think you'd see the standard be a lot better, the commercial product would be better, and you kind of see where I'm going here. It's like a big cycle of, you're not going to invest in it because it's kind of needs to improve, and it's only going to improve if we do it. So yeah, I would love to, though. I think Heather's the same. Heather would love to play test cricket.
Yeah, sorry, my battery cut out there, so I've changed devices.
I thought you thought that's what might have happened. Go on. So we were just talking about test cricket.
I just thought it was my boring question, Heather, to be honest with you.
No, not at all. Yeah, I love playing. I'd love to play more, but like Tammy says, I understand the reasons why we don't, and quite often the reason is money, as she said. And we don't play any multi-format cricket growing up at all. So naturally, when we do play test cricket, we're finding our feet a little bit. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I know a lot of players that would love to play more, but I think we understand the reasons why we don't currently, and it's T20 cricket predominantly, which is growing the women's game, and naturally the investment is going into that at the moment, because it's the one giving the most returns and the most commercial value.
Great, thanks, Richard. We'll try and move on. Will, I don't know, Will, if you're here, you could have quickly ask your question, and then we'll get into the quiz. If you're here, Will, are you? Maybe
I am here. Hi, Simon.
Yeah. Hi,
girls.
Will. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening. Just a quick question around with the whole kind of COVID situation. Obviously, basically, the whole of the women's summer was basically affected, obviously, by COVID, and you didn't really get to play that much cricket apart from the West Indies tour. Just a bit of like, how are you able to adapt in lockdown with not being able to meet up, and were you able to sharpen your skills and to kind of maintain your form? Just wondering how you managed to cope in the lockdowns that we've been having.
Yeah, we were a bit unlucky really because we were due to play South Africa and India, which at the time were two of the worst affected countries with COVID. So that obviously meant that was cancelled, and we just got a series against the West Indies very last minute. But yeah, lockdown was different. It was probably, I found it really nice at the start actually, because I'd been away for a long time, and just having a bit of time at home was amazing. So that probably lasted about 2 weeks, and then I was getting restless, wanting to know what was going on, and just that uncertainty that everyone has at the moment was tricky to deal with. But I think for me, I quite enjoyed doing things a little bit differently, doing slightly different fitness stuff, doing a lot more running and biking and things like that. And probably the forced break from cricket was probably quite a good thing, because I'm generally someone that likes to train and be doing things all the time. I'm not very good at relaxing and having time away from cricket. So that forced break, I think, was quite a good thing to kind of freshen up mentally. We've got a big few years ahead if all cricket is played. So that's really exciting. So that break, I think, has probably helped me in the long run in terms of having a mental break, and also assessing where I am at with my game, and trying to assess where the team's at and how, as captain, I want us to move forward and things.
I think I saw, Tammy, that you, I think, created an indoor gym, I think, or something. I seem to remember, I think, from looking at social media, you had weights and everything basically all around your house, I think, or something. I seem to remember.
Yeah, I converted the garage into a gym. My house, well, someone moved in for lockdown. She's my best friend. She's a GB weightlifter. So she lived in a one flat. So she moved in because there was no way she could train for Tokyo. So we changed the gym into the garage into a home gym, which is obviously still being used now, but it's a lot colder. But yeah, for me, it was about being a bit more innovative and creative. I think the first 4 weeks was quite nice to have a bit of a break from cricket. But in the end, yeah, I actually at one point put a duvet over the washing line and just hit some balls into that. Yeah, you kind of had to be a bit creative. We were really lucky we could get started back in sort of mid-June. I think we started training in sort of small groups and individual, and we built it up from there. I think the hardest part was actually when we were in about August time, when we found out India couldn't make it, then South Africa pulled out, and then a week later they moved the World Cup back. And I think at that point it was sort of, what am I training for here? Because we were back training full time. We were actually in a bubble playing against each other at Derby, and I think that was the hardest moment, because it was all your purpose had gone. When's the World Cup going to be? We've got no cricket this year. We're putting ourselves through like this isolation bubble from our families for what at the moment. And then obviously the West Indies pulled it out the bag and thankfully agreed to come, but that was probably the hardest part of the whole time. The rest of it was quite nice to spend time at my house, and I bought a new build a couple of years ago and haven't done any decorating, so loads got done in lockdown.
With the weightlifter obviously staying with you, were you able to kind of share ideas with each other, and kind of, because obviously cricket obviously to weightlifting is obviously two totally different things. I was wondering if you picked up any ideas from that.
Yeah, we did. There was so a weightlifter, a cricketer, a crossfitter, and an S&C coach. So we sort of had a day of the week where we'd maybe do whatever they kind of wanted, and that was quite nice to do sort of a few different things that maybe I wouldn't normally do at England. Or she kind of did a few CrossFit workouts, and as did I, and didn't quite get her playing cricket, but maybe one day.
What have you got lined up for the summer? Has anything been agreed yet? Cricket this summer, Heather? Perhaps you know that better than anyone.
Yeah, so we've got 2 series that are pretty much locked in. I think the New Zealand one has been announced. I don't think the other team has been announced yet, so I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say. But we've got a full schedule, which is amazing, and that will hopefully go ahead. If it has to go in bubbles, I think that will happen. Hopefully it doesn't. But yeah, we've got a really exciting couple of years, because we've got a huge year next year with the Ashes in Australia, the 50 over World Cup, and then the Commonwealth Games. So obviously we need a year of really good cricket for us to prepare for that. So yes, it's really nice, and we count ourselves so lucky that we've got that in the calendar to look forward to.
Excellent. Yeah, there were one or two asking about that, what's happening this summer. So two series, New Zealand definitely coming, and another coming as well. Great. Excellent.
Just one, finally, Phoebe, so we didn't get to you about how you kept going in lockdown. Stuart Broad had a nice story about bowling into a golf net in his back garden. Did you do any training during lockdown?
Did the washing line, bowling into a duvet.
Right,
and then
good.
Also just had a little golf chipper and actually tried my hand at golf. So that was my other lockdown sport, because that was the first sport to come back. So probably don't quite have a handicap yet, but now would say I can hold my own on the golf course.
You've got lots of divots in your back garden then, have you?
Yeah, the lawn's buggered, but apart from that, I can chip the ball.
Well, listen, Phoebe, thank you for joining us. We're doing this quiz now. Please stay on. We haven't got any questions for you, sorry. So it'll just be the two of them. But thank you very much for coming on. So Heather and Tammy, this is your moment. This is the quiz we call "How Well Do You Know Yourself?"
Oh God.
Here's the.
Who said that? Was that Heather or Tammy who said, "Oh God"?
Probably Tammy. This is the leaderboard this year so far. Andrew Strauss leading with 9 points, Gooch with 8, and Ian Bell with 7. And the champions in 2020 were actually Sophie Eccleston and Jack Leach. So, impressive. It starts with a little bit of music.
Oh God, he's got a memory.
Right. And basically, it's 10 questions. We're going to give you 5 each. And you can actually, I think, Simon, they can confer if they want, although I know they're in different rooms. But
yeah, I think so. The only thing is they are largely speaking specific questions for.
But they might be able to help each other.
Yeah, they might be able. So you're going to play as a team, basically. So
so your combined score
is going to go onto our leaderboard. I noticed there's a nice few dots for 4th place in there, but you got to get up to the top somewhere like that and dislodge Andrew Strauss. Actually, he was extremely competitive, wasn't he? A couple of weeks ago, he was very pleased to get to the top of our leaderboard.
Surprise me, Paul.
And if you get it right, you get a. He's got it! Which I know really should say she's got it, but I hadn't had time to put a "sir" before the "he's got it," I'm afraid. Sorry. Life's too short. If you get it wrong, get one of those. Okay? So, Simon, do you want to start off?
Right. So should we do one question for Tammy, one for Heather, or should we just go
so
Tammy's questions first?
No, you do one for Tammy and one for Heather, and then I'll do one for like that. So you do the first 2, one for each.
Okay, right. Okay, let's start with Tammy then, because she's first on my list. Here we go then, Tammy. This is question number 1 for you. This is about you and your career and things that happened to you in your life. Number 1, who dismissed you in your first Test innings?
Oh, Erin Osborne caught short leg for 1.
He's got it! Good start. Very good start. It was a little long hop outside leg, wasn't it?
Oh, I can't remember. The first ball after tea. Shouldn't have gone to tea.
I think yours meant a metaphorical long hop.
No, I didn't mean it was a long hop. I meant that was the question was like a long hop.
Oh.
Right, Heather, this might be a bit hard. I don't know if it's a bit harder or not, actually. Your first question is, how many did you score in the World Cup semi-final against South Africa in 2017?
I'm really bad with details of matches, just so you know. So this is my worst nightmare. I remember how I got out. Extremely angry.
Okay, well, what we'll do then, we'll give it to you within 2 either way.
Okay, I think it was 39.
How many did you score in the World Cup semi-final in 2017? You think it was 39?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, we can't give you that, I'm afraid, Heather. It was 30. I thought you were going to get it, actually, when you started off by saying 30. Then you added the 9. So I'm afraid that's 1 out of 2.
And you've got an overinflated opinion of your ability. Right. Question 2 for Tammy. Who has a better ODI batting average You or Joss Butler?
Oh. If we were going from 2016, I would say me, but I'm going to count the first half of my career and say Joss Butler.
Are you just trying to be modest?
Yep.
So you think Butler has a better batting average than you?
No, actually, I don't, because he's a middle order player. I'll say me. Got it.
Well, no, you've got to be decisive. Which is it?
Me. Final answer.
He's got it!
You are correct. You are correct. Tammy Beaumont, 41. Joss Butler, 39. Very good.
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. Heather, your second question. In your only test match not against Australia, how many runs did you score in the match?
Not many, I don't think.
Well, I was batting 3 and you were opening and I was in early.
Thanks, Tam. Yeah, I've forgotten that test match. Great one.
It was a Wormsley test match.
W's.
Yeah.
I was there, actually. I watched you.
Yeah, I reckon a combined total of 5.
No, can't. Can we give it that? Simon?
Am I close?
Well, you're close-ish, I would say.
Have one more guess.
6.
You're going the wrong way. We'll give you half a mark. You didn't. We'll give you. It's 1 actually is the answer. So we'll give you half a mark for that. Yeah, because you didn't say 23 or something. So yeah, we'll be kind to you.
Yeah, it was Norton 1, unfortunately, Heather. There we go. Right. Okay. On to
what is that? So that's 2.5 out of 4.
2.5 out of 4. Okay, Tammy. Question number 3 for you. Here we go then. In 163 matches for England in all 3 forms, so that's a lot of innings. How many ducks have you made? Now the answer is between 0 and 10, and I'll give it to you within 1. So if you're 1 either way.
Sorry, someone just knocked on my door, and it's probably like a healthcare nurse.
Okay,
can you answer this question? I'll come back. Is that all right?
No problem. What do you want?
The extra bit.
So Heather, ask Heather her third question then.
Okay, let's do Heather's question then. Right, here we go. Who has more Twitter followers, you or Tammy?
Tammy, I reckon. She's more of a social user.
You're wrong.
Oh no.
Heather, you've got 57,000 and Tammy's got 55,000. There we go. Right.
So that's what's that? That's we're losing. So that's 6. That's 5 questions because Tammy hasn't had her third.
2.5
out of 5.
Yeah.
I don't know how long is she. I wonder how long she's going to be.
Well, should we continue with Heather's questions?
Yeah. Okay.
So you do 4 and 5, and I'll pick up.
Okay. Heather, fourth question. What do your teammates say you would probably have done even before you get to the ground? Something you do sort of almost incessantly every day before you get to the ground. A sort of general thing, really.
God, my teammates. What would I do?
I mean, what do they assume you've done every day before you get to the ground because they know you?
Oh.
Is it a game?
Is what? You can try, Tammy. You can help her here if you want. What do teammates sort of?
Is it a gameplay?
Is it what gameplay?
A game day, as in
game day or training day. Yeah, a physical day. What would she probably have done?
On a bike ride.
And would you agree with that, Heather?
Oh, maybe a stretch or something. I'm renowned as a stretcher.
Well, I mean, Tammy's got it for you anyway. Tammy's got it right. So, there's a general perception that you'll have run even round your bed or something before you get to the game. Okay.
I did get a thought this morning. Maybe she's got something there.
Yeah, I mean, she is probably the most dedicated trainer going, so it's not hard.
Okay, so we'll give you that 3.5 out of 7. Tammy, start with Simon. You want to do Tammy's question again?
Yeah, this is
question 3.
A bit confusing where we are. Where are we?
Number 3 for Tammy.
Number 3. In 163 matches for England in all 3 forms, how many ducks have you made? Now, you also, Tammy, you've had the chance here to look this up while you've gone to open the door. So the answer is between 0 and 10.
How many ducks?
Between 0 and 10, and we'll give you 1 either side. How many ducks do you think you've made in international cricket in 163 matches? So in tests, T20s and ODIs.
7.
He's got it!
Okay.
The answer is 8. I said I'd give it to you one either side. 1 in tests, 4 in T20s, and 3 in one-day internationals, which actually strikes me as being remarkable, actually, that you've only managed 8 ducks in 163 matches and all those innings. Well, fantastic. It's never nice to get an out for naught, is it?
No, the test match one still hurts. I fielded for 3 days to face 3 balls.
Yeah, I bet.
It's a rough, tough game. And, you know, Yozza, who's bowled all those balls, they get so many chances as bowlers, don't they?
Oh, are you trotting that one out again? That's I mean, you're like a stuck record. You say that every bloody week. It's terrible. If you can't get your action right and you keep bowling down the leg side, how do you feel? I bowled 7 wides in a row to Alex Stewart and I couldn't finish the bloody over.
Yeah, but they let you have another one later in the game, probably. Right, let's continue. Otherwise, we'll fall out.
Right, no, so you've got to ask Tammy her fourth question now.
Okay, fourth question, Tammy. What did your flatmates find most annoying about you?
Well, I'm messy. I'm very messy.
Ooh, very good.
Very
messy. At least I'm self-aware.
Yeah, never did the washing up. Very messy. Good. Okay, so
never did the washing up. Oh dear, that's
5.5.
That's 5.5 out of 8 actually. So you're doing all right. Yeah. So right, final 2 questions. Let's go Heather first. Your last question: what piece of casual clothing were you urged to put to the back of your wardrobe and never wear again?
Please get this right.
Probably most of the wardrobe, I think.
Well, you could. Yeah, that's half a mark. There was something particular. There was one thing in particular.
Pullover with the little bit of collar.
Yeah, there was like a shirt with it was a pullover and it had like a shirt sewn in. It wasn't my greatest choice.
No, that's not the one that we were told. I'm going to give you a wrong answer for that.
Oh, I told her to put that one to the back of the cupboard though.
Well, allegedly it was a scarf with cats on it.
Scarf with cats on it?
Is that bogus? Oh, maybe rabbits then, was it?
Yeah, a long time ago, yeah.
Is that bogus information?
Maybe. Rabbits.
All right, we'll give you half a mark. We'll give you half a mark. So 6 out of 8. You're 6 out of 9. So okay. this is the final question. Am I doing this one? I can't remember.
No, I think I'm doing it, but I didn't write it, so I'm not taking ownership of this one. But what vital product, Tammy, did your father help to invent?
This is actually true as well. Viagra.
Oh,
Viagra. There we go. Do you want to tell that story? I mean, I don't know.
Oh well, my dad worked. He worked for Pfizer for 30 years. He's just moved to AstraZeneca. He actually did do a little bit of work on the Viagra project, but not enough to get his name on it.
There we go. It's funny, the things you learn, isn't it? Right, there we go. So
right,
what's that?
Well done. 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. You sort of dragged it back at the end, I'd say. And you did well. You did well. So where are you? Where are they on the leaderboard? Well, that's
joint third with Ian Bell.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's respectable. What did you reckon, Phoebe?
Very good, girls. Loved it.
Alistair Cook, he managed 4 when he came in the Virtual Cricket Club before Christmas. He was absolutely hopeless. Graham Swan said he knows all the stats. He absolutely knew nothing. As we mentioned before, he only knew anything about sheep. That was about it.
Tammy, has Heather's dress sense improved?
Yeah, a little bit.
Silence said a lot there, I think.
Brutal.
It has. She has some good outfits now, some key outfits that she rewears. I have to say that.
We should thank you so much for taking part. We should just finish really by, you telling us what cricket has done for you. Really, I mean, Tammy, you could have been, I suppose. I know you were into chemistry, weren't you? Did you study chemistry at uni? Is that right?
Yeah, I did chemistry.
So, I mean, what could you have been if you hadn't have been a cricketer, and what has cricket given you?
Yeah, my school were actually really annoyed at me for not going to Oxford or Cambridge. But I think Heather was pretty similar. She was also incredibly intelligent. But yeah, I guess for me, it's let me travel the world, experience, you know, a wonderful sport all across the country, well, all across the world. And yeah, I think it's kind of, it'd always been my passion. I remember as like a 10-year-old, I'd tell anyone who'd listen, I'm going to play cricket for England. I think at the time I meant the men's cricket team, but obviously found out there was a women's team not long after that. But yeah, it's always been my passion. It's always been the one thing that I've wanted to do. Even now, thinking about after cricket scares me because it's not cricket. It's not playing the game I love. So yeah, for me, I think it's done an awful lot. It's shaped my entire life really, and I think it will do for a very long time.
Phoebe, you're back with us. You said about this, you know, going to the World Cup final, revitalize your enthusiasm, and I suppose for you, is it about trying to be as good as you can possibly be in something? Is that the challenge?
Definitely. I think the challenge is just reaching my potential, and I'm loving being back in a competitive environment where I'm tested week in, week out. I don't feel like I've been in that for a lot of years. So yeah, I think that's my biggest challenge.
And Heather, you obviously you're England captain. You know, you're not thinking sort of too far ahead, but have you ever been tempted to think what's next? I mean, I presume some girls will not go into cricket because they're worried about their long-term future. They could have 5 years in it and then, you know, they'd be sort of out there trying to find a job. But can you be reassured by your future post-cricket, even though you've given a lot of your best years to the game?
Yeah, I actually think lockdown helped me think about it a little bit more, really, because I think it made me realise how fickle cricket can be and how it can be taken away very quickly. I just started a master's actually to try and do something different and prepare for life after cricket. But I think the experiences you have in the game and you as a cricketer give you so many skills, I think, that are applicable to the outside world. And I did a degree in physiology. I certainly won't be going back to that, I don't think. My knowledge is drained out of my brain for that, that's for sure. But yeah, I think I'm excited for after cricket as well. I'm also, like Tammy said, apprehensive about when it does end, I think, because it's such a big part of your life. But I think the skills you get in cricket prepare you a lot for, hopefully, for what's to come.
Simon, you got any thoughts?
I was just being sledged by Scott Moody actually on the chat. He says, "Man, you have no idea." I'm not sure what that's about. Perhaps it was about as a bowler, you always got another ball to bowl, whereas you know, if you're a batter, you know, that I might always think you get one chance. Although you can bat all day if you're good enough, I suppose. But you can bowl all day even if you're rubbish shells, can't you?
Thanks. Yeah.
We're just struggling with Heather's line there. I mean, it's been brilliant actually to have you all joining us tonight. Phoebe, you're in the UK, and Heather and Tammy are out there in New Zealand. I do envy you out there in New Zealand, although perhaps not the next 12 days of your lives, but good luck with it anyway.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, just to finish, to just tell us, you know, if there's any girls watching, why should they play cricket? You got one sentence each.
I think you'll make friends for a lifetime. Would be mine.
Tammy?
The only game that stops for food.
Nice.
Excellent. Heather?
Yeah, the shared experiences you have with people.
That's where we'll leave it. You've given us more than enough time. I'm sure in your cases in New Zealand, it's your breakfast, past your breakfast, and Phoebe, it must be past your dinner time. So thank you very much again from everybody for fantastic commitment and all you do for the game. It's been brilliant.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
And good luck, girls.
Thanks.
Good luck, girls. Everybody, good luck. And please feel free to leave. leaving us with our after party. Thanks, guys. Thank you very much. Good night or good morning.